Hi, everyone. It's Dave Baggett here with Inky, and welcome to another episode of Phish Friday. We're joined, as usual, by Bukhar, our analyst and fish hunter. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. Now, those of you who have seen this before know we typically go through half a dozen or more fish examples and talk about each one. We thought today we would do a deep dive on a single phishing email that we caught recently that uses not one, but two, but three techniques. And we're going to go under the hood of this email and we're going to show you exactly how it does what it does. And that's going to require us to get into some explanations of how CSS and HTML emails work. And we're going to look at the HTML code. So it's going to be a little bit different. If you have questions, you'll see on the right of your screen, you can put in questions and we'll try to answer them as we go along. I think at this point, I'll just dive in and show you this example. So, Bukhar, when we see something like this, what's your first reaction? I mean, I have to imagine we see examples like this all the time, right?
Yeah, we see voicemail fish like this all the time. Pretty much the recipient's being told that they missed a voicemail. The fisher adds a fake sender, a fake date, a duration to make it more convincing. And we do see lots of variants of this scam. Now, sometimes the attack vector is a malicious link going to a credential harvesting site, like a fake Microsoft site. And other times it's a malicious attachment. But it is more, but when they include an attachment, it's more convincing because real voicemail notifications have attachments, but those are actually audio files. So you'd never see an executable document or spreadsheet.
Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's more realistic if it's an attachment because a lot of the real voicemail systems send emails with attachments. That might not be the greatest security practice, but they do it. So the fact that someone gets something that looks like it's from Office 365 here, has a file attachment, it may not seem that strange to the user. Now I notice if we zoom in on that bottom footer there, where it says powered by 365 voicemail, it looks kind of funny. So what's going on with that?
So it looks funny because the attacker is using confusable text. That's 6 and M. It's not actually a 6 and M. They're Cyrillic characters called B and M.
Oh, interesting. So what looks like a 6, it kind of looks like the font's funny, and that M looks like it's kind of a small cap M, but it's really what you're saying is those are not a 6 and an M at all. They're actually Cyrillic characters used for writing Russian.
Right.
So why on earth would they do this?
So attackers know that legacy secured email gateways scan for certain patterns to detect phish. So they might be looking for 365 voicemail, and if they get a match, they know it's a phish. So by using confusable text, the system doesn't get a match, but the recipient still sees 365 voicemail.
Ah, I got it. So they've seen fish that have this text powered by 365 voicemail. So now they use that almost as a signature, like a malware signature for an attachment. So they're looking for this pattern of these exact words powered by 365 voicemail. And although it looks the same to a person, it looks different to the SEG because it actually doesn't say 365 voicemail. It says 3 funny character 5 and then the M and voicemail is different. So I see. So they're hiding this indicative text, which might indicate the mail is a phishing mail from the pattern matching of the SEG. So why can't they just make another rule that matches this?
They can definitely make another rule, but now they're playing a game of whack-a-mole since there's millions of other characters that an attacker can use. So it's impossible and inefficient to have a separate pattern for every possible combination. And if the attacker uses an image, then you can't scan an image unless you're using computer vision. So scanning for text won't work.
Got it. So I guess what you're saying is they could replace other characters in here, like that 3, they could replace with some other random Unicode character, we don't know what it is, that looks like a 3. And then there's all different combinations. So it's impossible to make enough rules to capture every way they could do this. And on computer vision, I know that we use computer vision in a couple different ways. So we actually render the mail at Inky, so we know what the characters look like, and if it's visually similar to a letter M, like that funny small cap looking M, Inky actually sees it as close enough to an M. So Inky would actually match this pattern as reading powered by 365 voicemail. So then the problem solved, right?
Well, not exactly. If we go back to the email, we see the big Office 365 logo.
Yeah.
That's actually not a logo. It's just big red text called logo type. And we see it all the time.
Right. So that's close enough to a logo that the user might misinterpret it as a logo, an image, but you're saying it's actually just big text. And I guess one of the advantages of us rendering the mail is, we're pretending to be Outlook or Gmail or the mail client. Obviously, we don't have a monitor attached to it and there's no user reading it, but we're rendering it like the client would. So then Inky can see there's this big text there that says O365 voicemail. So Inky can tell that logo says Office 365, right? So that's simple.
Right. We can tell that it looks like a logo to an end user.
So because the text there says Office 365, we know it indicates it's Microsoft branding.
Right.
Interesting. So let's look under the hood here, under the HTML. Tell us what's going on here. So I know there must be something here to make the text big and red.
Right. So if we look in the first line, it's basically telling that logo to have a white background. But in the third line, it's saying make the color red, and size 7 just means make it really, really big.
Right, so that makes sense. So that's why it's big and red.
Right. And for now, we're going to ignore the green text. That's just CSS style code. But if you look at the white text, do you notice anything funny about that?
It doesn't say Office 365.
Right. Does it look similar to something?
It says Office 365 in reverse. Oh my gosh, that's so weird.
It does.
What's the deal with that? So how is it? Okay, so this is the HTML code for that big logo type in the upper left corner, which reads Office 365, but it actually says 563 and then the word Office backwards.
Right. So you'll notice that the green text says Unicode BIDI. That stands for Unicode bidirectional.
Ah, okay. So something with the direction. So what's happening what are they doing here with this BIDI code?
So in English, we read words left to right, but there are some languages like Hebrew and Arabic where it's read right to left. In HTML and CSS, you can have different languages in the same line of text. An internet browser can automatically figure out how to render mixed direction text, but in tricky cases, it gets it wrong. So this is where that CSS Unicode BIDI property helps. It forces the browser to render mixed direction text in the right way.
Okay, so there's this, let's go back to the code. So this Unicode BIDI lets the HTML designer force the browser to render some portion of text in a direction. So Arabic's normally done right to left. Obviously, English is done left to right. And they're setting this RTL value here. So that's basically saying that text there, browser, don't render it left to right like you normally would, forcibly render it right to left, which then makes it appear forwards to the user.
Right, then a machine reads it, they're not able to match Office 365.
Right, because it doesn't say that. Oh my gosh, that's so incredibly clever.
It is. Whoever came up with this is really smart and creative. They're using their advanced HTML and CSS skills in a bad way. And the problem is anyone can now use this trick in a Phish kit they get from the dark web. They don't need to understand how it works. They just execute commands and they have a nice tricky Phish.
Wow. So, I mean, when you saw this the first time, did you even immediately get what was going on here?
No, I did not. I had to look up the CSS property, and then I found out about the Unicode BIDI.
Oh my God. So we can imagine there's some kingpin Walter White figure out there who's making these things, who understands not only these obscure corners of HTML and CSS, but also how the segs work. So they're kind of taking this knowledge and weaponizing it. And then they put it in some, I guess they put it on some phishing kit on the dark web, and then anybody can go download it.
Right, like script kiddies that don't know how to program. They just execute the commands.
Wow. And so let's say this gets through a SEG, which we assume it would, because the SEG's not going to look for 563 ECIFFO. What happens to it? There's an attachment. Tell us, like, what's the mechanism of action here? I mean, what is the attacker trying to accomplish with this? We saw how they can get it through, but now what?
So if you notice the content type, it's an octet stream.
Right, that application octet stream, which, as far as I know, means kind of a not really any format, just raw binary data, but it's a text file. So normally, wouldn't you see text plain here, or text HTML or something like that, some document type?
You would, but pretty much what the attacker is doing is, this is another cloaking technique. By setting the MIME type to octet stream, the SEG ignores it because it's not a document MIME type, and users don't really interact with binary files, so they completely ignore it.
So the SEG ignores it because it's not a file format for a document, and therefore the end user can't open it and do anything with it, right?
Well, mail clients like Outlook and Gmail are very smart, so they try and make sense of the attachments even if the MIME type is wrong. So in this case, Outlook analyzed the data in the attachment and concluded that it's a text file, so it upgraded the MIME type to plain text. This allows the user to interact with this text file with a text editor, like Notepad or TextEdit.
Oh my God. So you're saying Outlook and Gmail and other mail clients, because they're trying to be helpful, they'll look at this blob of data that's labeled by the attacker as an octet stream, meaning raw bytes, and they'll say, oh, this looks like text. I'm just going to helpfully convert this back to what it should have been, text plain, and then the user can open it.
Yeah, they're helping the bad actor.
And the attacker knows that this is going to happen, which is why he's put this in this totally obscure way. But even then, I mean, they open a text file. What can that do?
So it looks like gibberish right now. All you see are letters and numbers, because that's actually a phishing link that's encoded in base 64. So this is just another trick to conceal the phishing link.
Right. So I know that all the different attachments, whatever type they are, they can be encoded in different ways. And this base 64, I mean, it looks like a big block of gibberish, but that's actually an encoding for the text file. And you're saying that there's actually in there a URL. And I guess this cloaks the URL from the SEG also, in that even if the SEG looks at the bytes of the raw email, they're not going to see a URL in here. They're going to see a base 64 encoded blob. Interesting. So now when they open it, I guess they get this text. So they get a notepad opening on their PC that shows this text here. And yeah, and there's a voicemail. Oh, and look what they've done. They basically said, it's like instructions for how to listen to your voicemail. So what they're saying here is they want the user, the victim, to go and cut and paste this URL, this attachmail.ru, and they want the user to think, well, this is how you're going to read your voicemail. So like, what happens when they go there? Did you look?
Yeah, so when they go there, it was a fake Microsoft site used for credential harvesting.
Of course. And I guess we see hundreds of these a week, right? These fake Office 365 login pages that usually look perfect and haven't been reported to any threat feed. This is just yet another one of those.
We do, yes. Well, fortunately for this example, the victim was protected by Inky. So because of the way we rendered it and our computer vision, we're able to tell that it's a brand impersonation email, and it links to a phishing site.
Oh my God. So I'm going to go back and review. So this thing uses 3 different techniques. First of all, you got the footer there that's got what you call Unicode confusable. So that's going to hide that text from the SEG, but not from Inky. This thing, the Office 365 logo type, uses the right to left BIDI hack so that it hides the text Office 365 from the SEG, but I guess not from Inky, at least now, because we render it, we can see that it actually says Office 365. And then that's the attachment type to something that tells the SEG to ignore it. Now, I know actually at Inky, we also, when we pretend to be the mail client, we also do that same behavior, right, of upgrading the MIME type to what it should be if we could recognize the file type. So we would be able to see the text of this thing, and we would be able to recognize it's a text file. And then finally, it sends them to a credential harvesting site, which probably looks exactly like a real Office 365 login page, which again, even if I suppose even if this had gotten through all of Inky's protections, at the point where the user tried to click through, Inky would give them a rendering of that page, and it would analyze that page and might actually figure out, oh, that looks like a fake Office 365 login page. Inky doesn't like those, even if it's never been reported to any threat feed. So you've got at least 4, if not 5 different layers that you have to get through to prevent this Phish from phishing somebody.
Right.
Amazing. Amazing.
And
I'm going to go back and see if we have questions. No questions yet. All right. Well, hopefully that gave everybody a nice, fun window into an incredibly nasty Phish. I do think it's fascinating that, you know, the massive volume of this stuff we think is probably just coming from script kiddies and people who don't even know how this stuff works. But when you see something like this, obviously it highlights to you there are incredibly smart people out there that are producing these new techniques and tactics.
Right. They could obviously use their web development skills for good use, but they're using it to phish people.
And we saw that earlier too with that, we saw that fake stimulus check site where some very talented web designer had made an absolutely perfect looking fake site to get your entitlement check. Remember, it had the banking drop downs and it's got the perfect bank logos and actually probably look better than the real government entitlement checks.
It did.
So I mean, there's folks out there that know web design and are using it for these purposes. But I guess the other thing that this highlights is if you really look at these tactics, I mean, reversing the text, trying to change the MIME type, it also is very obvious that some of these sophisticated attackers know a lot about how the SEGs work, and they know exactly what's able to get through those.
That's correct. That's why they're using the advanced techniques.
Amazing. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed this. I certainly did. And join us for another Phish Friday. The next one, we're going to talk about another tactic, and we'll look at maybe 1 or 2 examples of hidden text and zero font. So join us next time for that. We'll go through a similar deep dive on that. But in the meantime, everybody have a great weekend and take care.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.